The Deep Space Monitoring Station picked up the signal at exactly 1427 Galactic Standard Time. The transmission came from a small blue planet in the outer rim of what the locals called the Milky Way. Admiral Kethvar studied the data on his command screen with mild interest. Another primitive species had discovered faster-than-light communication. This happened perhaps once every few decades across the galaxy. The species always followed the same pattern. First came the excited messages between their scattered worlds. Then came the realization that they were not alone. Finally came contact with the Hegemony Council. Kethvar belonged to the Zalani Empire, the most powerful member of the 12-species coalition that ruled this section of space. His gray skin bore the ritual scars that marked him as a military commander. His forearms moved efficiently across the control panels as he pulled up more information about these newcomers. The species called themselves humans. They had spread to 17 different star systems over the past century. Their technology was laughably primitive. Their fastest ships took months to travel between nearby stars. Their weapons were chemical explosives and simple energy beams. Most amusing of all, they seemed to have no unified government. The intelligence reports painted a familiar picture. Humans were scattered across too many worlds to defend properly. They spent most of their time fighting among themselves over resources and territory. Their military consisted mainly of converted cargo ships and mining vessels. They had never faced a real military force. Perfect. Kethvar opened a communication channel to the council chambers on the capital world of Nexus Prime. The response came immediately. Chancellor Vorth's image appeared on the screen, his reptilian features showing mild annoyance at being disturbed. "What is it, Admiral?" "We have another species ready for integration, Chancellor. They call themselves humans. 17 worlds, primitive technology, no unified defense." Vorth's expression shifted to one of boredom. "Standard protocol, then. Send the ultimatum. How long do you estimate before they submit?" Kethvar consulted his data again. Previous species of similar development have taken between 6 and 72 hours to surrender. I estimate these humans will choose negotiation within 48 hours. "Very well. Prepare a collection fleet. We can always use more workers in the outer mining operations." The transmission ended. Kethvar turned to his communications officer, a thin Zalani female named Jeshara. "Compose the standard ultimatum. Target their most remote settlement first. Make sure they understand the consequences of resistance." Jeshra's fingers danced across her console. The message was always the same, translated into the target species' primitive languages. The hegemony had used these exact words to bring 47 different species into their empire over the past 1,000 years. The message found its target at a human settlement called New Kepler, a mining colony on the edge of human space. Commander Sarah Chen was reviewing daily production reports when her communications officer burst into her office. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's not from any human ship or station." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. "Put it through." The message played in perfect English, though the voice had an odd mechanical quality that suggested translation software. "To the species known as humans. You have been detected by the Hegemony Council, the lawful authority over this region of space. Your species will submit to Council authority within 72 standard hours. You will surrender all military assets. Your population will be relocated to designated worlds where you will serve as a protected labor caste under Council supervision. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your species. This message constitutes your only warning. Respond through this communication channel with your acceptance." The message ended. Chen stared at the communication panel in stunned silence. Her officer, Lieutenant Park, looked pale. "Commander, what do we do?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. She had been a military officer for 20 years. She had fought in the resource wars that had nearly destroyed humanity 50 years ago. She had seen what happened when civilizations chose slavery over death. Send a message to Earth immediately, highest priority. Tell them we have made contact with a hostile alien force. Include the full transmission. Yes, ma'am. Should we prepare evacuation procedures? Chen looked out the window of her office. Below, human miners were going about their daily work, unaware that their entire species had just been threatened with extinction or slavery. Children played in the small parks between the residential blocks. Families were sitting down to dinner. No evacuation. Send the message to Earth and wait for instructions. The message reached Earth 6 hours later, due to the distance involved. President Martinez called an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Admiral Hayes, the head of human military forces, studied the alien transmission with growing concern. How many ships do we have that could actually fight? Martinez asked. Hayes consulted his datapad. Honestly, Mr. President, maybe 200 vessels that could be called warships, and I'm being generous. Most of those are converted cargo haulers with missile pods welded on. Against an enemy that can travel faster than light and has conquered 47 other species? He shook his head. We'd last maybe a week. What about our colonies? Can we evacuate them? Not in 72 hours, not even close. We'd need months to move that many people. Martinez rubbed his temples. The weight of the entire species rested on his shoulders. So our choices are slavery or extinction. That's what they think, Hayes said quietly. What do you mean? Hayes was quiet for a moment. Then he opened a secure file on his datapad. Mr. President, there are some things about our military capabilities that even you don't know. Things we've been preparing for since the resource wars ended. Martinez leaned forward. What kind of things? The kind of things that make me think these aliens may have made a very serious mistake. Meanwhile, back at New Kepler, Commander Chen received a priority message from Earth. She read it twice, then called her senior staff to the briefing room. Her expression was grim but determined. I've received our orders from Earth Command, she announced. We are to send a response to the alien ultimatum. Colonel Rivera, her second-in-command, leaned forward. What are our terms for negotiation? Chen looked around the room at her officers. These were good people who had served with distinction in humanity's various conflicts. They deserved to know the truth. There will be no negotiation, she said simply. Earth's response is a rejection of both options presented. The room fell, silent. Lieutenant Park spoke first. Commander, they said they would destroy our entire species. Yes, they did. So what exactly are we supposed to tell them? Chen stood up and walked to the communication console. Her voice was steady as she began recording humanity's response. This is Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance, representing the human species in response to your ultimatum. We have considered your terms carefully. We decline both submission and destruction. If you want what you think we have, come and take it. She ended the recording and turned back to her staff. Send that message on all frequencies. Make sure every ship in their fleet receives it. Rivera stared at her in shock. Commander, you just declared war on a galactic empire. Chen nodded. Yes, I did. And now we find out what humans are really made of. The message was transmitted. 30 minutes later. Across human space, similar responses went out from every colony and ship. The response was always the same. No negotiation, no surrender. Come and take it. Admiral Kethvar received the first response with complete disbelief. He read it 3 times before calling Chancellor Vorth. Chancellor, we have a problem. The humans have refused both options. That's impossible. No species refuses both options. I have the message here. They've declared their intention to resist. Vorth was quiet for a long moment. Very well. Initiate standard intimidation protocol. Choose a target colony and make an example of them. Once they see our power, they'll reconsider. Kethvar checked his star charts. The colony at New Haven would be suitable. Research station, 50,000 civilians, should provide an adequate demonstration. Proceed, Admiral. And Kethvar? Yes, Chancellor. Make it memorable. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working late in her laboratory when the evacuation order came through. She looked up from her research notes as alarms began blaring throughout the New Haven research station. Her assistant, Dr. Kim, burst through the door with panic in his eyes. "Elena, we have to go. Now! The transport ships are leaving in 20 minutes. Elena calmly saved her work and began packing her most important research files. "What's the emergency?" "Hostile alien fleet approaching. They're calling it a demonstration attack. All civilians are being evacuated to the underground shelters or off-world." Elena nodded and continued packing. She had been expecting this moment for weeks, ever since the first alien message reached human space. New Haven wasn't really a research station, despite what all the official records claimed. It was something much more important. 20 minutes. Later, the last civilian transport lifted off from New Haven's surface. The research station appeared completely abandoned. No ships remained in orbit. No defensive platforms were visible. From space, it looked exactly like what the aliens expected to find: a helpless civilian target. Admiral Kethvar's task force dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Haven system. 12 heavy cruisers and 40 escort vessels. More than enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Kethvar studied the sensor readings with satisfaction. "No military presence detected," reported his tactical officer. "The colony appears to have been evacuated." "Perfect. Even better than we planned. Begin recording for transmission to all human worlds. I want them to see what happens to those who defy the hegemony." The fleet moved slowly toward New Haven, taking their time to build dramatic tension. This was as much about psychological warfare as actual destruction. Previous species had surrendered immediately after watching their worlds burn. On the surface of New Haven, a very different kind of evacuation was taking place. The research staff that had supposedly fled were actually military engineers in civilian clothing. They moved through the abandoned buildings with practiced efficiency, making final preparations. Major Lisa Park, the real commander of New Haven, checked her watch. 40 minutes until the alien fleet reached firing range. She activated her communication. "System, all teams, report status. Team 1 ready, primary facility charges are armed. Team 2 ready, underground systems are active. Team 3 ready, orbital platforms are powered up and hidden." Park nodded with satisfaction. 3 months of preparation were about to pay off. New Haven had been designed from the beginning as a trap. Every building contained hidden weapons. Every research lab was actually a military bunker. The entire colony was one massive ambush. Admiral Kethvar's fleet reached attack position right on schedule. The tactical display showed New Haven as a defenseless world with no military assets. Exactly what intelligence had predicted. "Admiral, should we hail them first? Offer one final chance to surrender?" Kethvar considered this. Standard protocol called for offering surrender before demonstration attacks, but the humans had already refused to negotiate. Time to show them the consequences. No. Begin bombardment of the primary research facility. Maximum power. I want nothing left but a crater. The heavy cruiser Domination charged its main cannon. Energy readings spiked as the weapon prepared to fire. On other ships, gunners targeted secondary facilities and infrastructure. This would be over in minutes. The blast hit New Haven's primary research facility dead center. The building vaporized instantly in a brilliant flash of light. Kethvar watched with satisfaction as the explosion expanded outward, destroying everything within a 5-kilometer radius. Then something went wrong. The explosion should have stopped. Instead, it kept growing. The brilliant flash became a small star as antimatter charges hidden throughout the facility triggered in sequence. The chain reaction spread faster than the alien sensors could track. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy spikes across the entire colony." Kethvar stared at his tactical display in horror. What had appeared to be a simple research station was revealing its true nature. Every building was exploding in sequence, each one containing enough antimatter to destroy a ship. The entire colony was one enormous bomb, evasive maneuvers, all ships, emergency retreat. But it was too late. Human ships were already emerging from their hiding places throughout the system. They hadn't abandoned New Haven. They had been waiting. Asteroid mining ships threw off their camouflage to reveal weapon systems. Cargo haulers opened their holds to launch fighter squadrons. The human attack came from all directions at once. Their ships moved with desperate speed, closing to point-blank range before opening fire. They didn't fight like any military force Kethvar had ever encountered. They fought like wild animals. The first human ship to reach the alien fleet was a converted mining vessel called the Perseverance. Instead of maintaining safe distance and exchanging fire, it accelerated directly toward the cruiser Domination. The alien crew assumed it was a ramming attack and prepared defensive fire. They were partially right. The Perseverance was indeed planning to ram, but not in the way they expected. At the last second, the human ship activated its mining charges and detonated itself against the alien hull. The explosion tore a massive hole in the Domination's armor. "Status report!" Kethvar shouted over the alarms. "Heavy damage to Domination. We're detecting hull breaches across 6 decks. The humans are using suicide attacks." More human ships were closing rapidly. Kethvar watched in growing horror as they repeated the same tactic. Ship after ship accelerated to ramming speed, then detonated against alien hulls. They weren't trying to capture enemy vessels or take prisoners. They were trying to kill as many aliens as possible before dying themselves. The battle became a nightmare. Human fighters swarmed the alien formation like angry insects. They ignored defensive fire and concentrated on getting close enough to detonate their onboard explosives. Alien ships found themselves under attack from all sides by enemies who showed no regard for their own survival. Lieutenant Commander Torres piloted her fighter directly into the launch bay of an alien escort ship. Her last transmission was heard, clearly across the battle. "Remember New Haven, you bastards!" The escort ship exploded from the inside as Torres's fighter detonated its antimatter warhead in the hangar bay. Similar explosions were happening throughout the alien fleet as human pilots sacrificed themselves to maximize enemy casualties. Admiral Kethvar realized his fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that shouldn't have been able to threaten a single one of his ships. The humans were using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They fought without honor, without mercy, and without any apparent regard for survival. "Admiral, we need to retreat. We've lost 8 ships and the humans are still coming!" Kethvar looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone. The humans had suffered terrible casualties, but they kept attacking. Every destroyed human ship seemed to spawn 2 more from hidden positions throughout the system. "All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace, immediate withdrawal." The surviving alien ships began their escape sequence. But even in retreat, the humans weren't finished. Long-range missiles launched from hidden asteroid bases began hitting the fleeing vessels. The humans had turned the entire star system into a weapons platform. Kethvar's flagship barely escaped, its hull scarred by human weapons that shouldn't have existed. As they jumped to hyperspace, emergency signals came from across the fleet. The humans hadn't just fought back. They had fought back with technology and tactics that intelligence had said they didn't possess. Back at New Haven, Major Park emerged from her underground command bunker. The surface of the planet was a wasteland of craters and debris, but scattered among the wreckage were pieces of alien ships and technology. Her engineers were already moving to collect everything they could find. "Casualty report," she requested. 43% of our forces destroyed, ma'am, but we took down 21 alien ships and damaged most of the rest." Park nodded grimly. The price had been heavy, but the message was clear. Humanity would not submit quietly. Every battle would cost the aliens more than they expected to pay. She activated her long-range communication system. "This is New Haven Base to Earth Command. Mission accomplished. The aliens have been shown what human negotiation looks like. We estimate their fleet will need several weeks to recover before they can mount another attack. The response came back immediately. Understood, New Haven. Well done. Phase 2 begins now. Park didn't know what Phase 2 involved, but she could guess. The aliens thought they were fighting a primitive species with simple weapons and basics, tactics. They were about to learn that human military intelligence had been planning for this war much longer than anyone realized. In his damaged flagship, Admiral Kethvar composed his report to the Hegemony Council. His hands shook slightly as he described the battle. For the first time in his military career, he had encountered an enemy that fought without regard for the accepted rules of warfare. The humans didn't just want to win, they wanted to hurt their enemies as badly as possible. They treated every engagement as a fight to the death. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to have been preparing for this war long before first contact. Chancellor Vorth read Admiral Kethvar's battle report 3 times before accepting what it said. The humans had not only resisted the demonstration attack at New Haven, they had destroyed most of the task force sent to intimidate them. This had never happened before in hegemony history. He called an emergency session of the full council. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Chamber on Nexus Prime. The mood was tense as Vorth displayed the battle recordings that Kethvar's surviving ships had transmitted. Council members, we face an unusual situation. The species called humans has not only refused our standard ultimatum, they have actively engaged our forces in combat. The recordings played on the main screen. Council members watched in growing alarm as human ships deliberately rammed themselves into hegemony vessels. They saw the coordinated explosions that had turned an entire planet into a weapon. Most shocking of all, they witnessed humans fighting with a savagery that none of them had seen before. Counselor Drex of the Mantari Collective spoke first. This is impossible. Our intelligence report said these humans were primitive, divided, weak. That's what our report said, Vorth agreed. But clearly, our intelligence was incomplete. General Vaxth of the Korthani military spoke next. His species had provided most of the hegemony's ground forces for centuries. The tactical recordings show sophisticated coordination. These humans didn't just fight back randomly, they planned this battle in advance. The entire colony was a trap. Admiral Kethvar's image appeared on the communication screen. His flagship was still limping back to hegemony space, but he was able to participate in the emergency session. Council members, I must stress how different these humans are from previous species we have encountered. They don't fight to defend territory or protect civilians. They fight to kill as many of us as possible. Their entire tactical doctrine seems designed around maximizing enemy casualties rather than minimizing their own. This statement caused uproar in the council chamber. Civilized species fought to achieve objectives with minimal losses. The idea of deliberately seeking maximum destruction was barbaric. Counselor Yinth of the peaceful Eldari spoke with obvious distress. Surely they can still be reasoned with. No species chooses total destruction over negotiation. Vorth pulled up the human response messages that had been sent from their various colonies. I'm afraid their position is quite clear. Every human settlement has sent the same message. No negotiation, no surrender. They've made their choice. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. For 1,000 years, the hegemony had expanded through a simple process. Overwhelm primitive species with superior technology. Offer them slavery as an alternative to extinction. Wait for them to choose survival over pride. Integrate them into the empire as a new labor caste. The humans had broken this pattern completely. What do we know about their actual military capabilities? Asked General Vaxth. Admiral Kethvar consulted his damage reports. More than we thought. The weapons they used against my fleet weren't primitive chemical explosives. They had antimatter charges, energy weapons comparable to our own, and coordination, systems that suggest faster-than-light communication. Either our intelligence was completely wrong, or they've been hiding their true capabilities. How many ships do they have? Unknown. We detected approximately 50 vessels at New Haven, but intelligence suggests they have settlements in 17 star systems. If each system is as heavily defended as New Haven, Vorth did the mathematics quickly. If the humans had been lying about their military strength from the beginning, they could potentially field hundreds or even thousands of warships. This was no longer a simple integration operation. Council members, I believe we need to commit substantial forces to this campaign. These humans have proven they cannot be intimidated. We will have to defeat them completely. General Vaxth nodded agreement. I recommend mobilizing the full hegemony fleet. All 12 member species should contribute ships. We cannot allow this resistance to inspire other species to rebellion. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in 3 centuries, the hegemony would deploy its entire military force against a single species. More than 3,000 ships would be assembled for the campaign against humanity. But while the Council planned their massive assault, humanity was implementing plans of their own. On Earth, Admiral Hayes stood in the war room deep beneath the Global Defense Council headquarters. The walls were covered with star charts showing human colonies, trade routes, and military assets. To any alien observer, it would have looked like a desperate attempt to coordinate a hopeless defense. In reality, it was the nerve center of the most sophisticated military deception in human history. Report from New Haven, announced Colonel Martinez, Hayes' intelligence chief. Major Park confirms the aliens took the bait completely. They believed they were attacking a civilian research station until the trap was sprung. Hayes smiled grimly. Perfect. How long until they realize what they're really fighting? Based on our projections, they'll need several weeks to assemble a major fleet. That gives us time to complete Phase 2 preparations. Hayes walked to the main tactical display. It showed the 17 human colonies as small, vulnerable dots scattered across space. But touching a control revealed the true picture. Each colony was actually a major military installation. Each trade route was a supply line for hidden fleets. Each civilian settlement was a fortress. Status report on the other sites? All. Secondary installations are ready. The aliens will find 17 more surprises waiting for them. The reality was that humanity had been preparing for this war since the end of the resource wars 50 years ago. The global conflict that had nearly destroyed human civilization had taught them valuable lessons about warfare, technology, and most importantly, deception. When humans had developed faster-than-light travel, they knew they would eventually encounter other species. Military planners had assumed some of those species would be hostile. So while civilian colonists established visible settlements, military engineers had built secret installations throughout human space. Every mining operation was also a weapons factory. Every research station was also a military base. Every civilian transport ship was also a potential warship. Humanity had built a distributed military infrastructure that could support a war effort far beyond what their visible assets suggested. The key to the deception was making the aliens believe they were fighting primitive colonists with converted cargo ships. In reality, they were about to face the largest military buildup in human history. Sir, we're receiving reports from our intelligence assets in hegemony space, Colonel Martinez announced. Hayes raised an eyebrow. Intelligence assets? The survivors. From New Haven weren't the only humans in alien territory. We've had deep cover operatives gathering information for years. This was news to Hayes. How long have we known about the hegemony? We detected their communication networks shortly after developing FTL technology. We've been monitoring their expansion pattern and learning their tactics for decades. We know exactly how they operate. Hayes stared at the colonel in amazement. You're telling me we've been spying on them since before first contact? Yes, sir. We know their fleet compositions, their technology levels, their political structure, and most importantly, their military doctrine. They always follow the same pattern when integrating new species. Ultimatum, demonstration attack, overwhelming force, then occupation. And we've been planning our defense based on this intelligence. Not just defense, sir. Our entire strategy is designed around turning their standard tactics against them. They expect desperate resistance followed by gradual collapse. Instead, they're going to face coordinated attacks that get stronger over time. Hayes began to understand the scope of what had been planned. The 17 colonies aren't separate targets. They're 17 parts of a single military operation. Exactly. Each installation is designed to weaken the alien fleet while appearing to be a desperate last stand. By the time they realize what they're really fighting, their forces will be scattered and damaged. And then? Colonel Martinez smiled coldly. Then we show them what human military technology really looks like when we're not pretending to be primitive. Across human space, the final preparations were being completed. Ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels were receiving their military upgrades. Hidden weapons factories were operating at maximum capacity. Troops that had been pretending to be miners and researchers were reporting to their real units. On the colony world of New Terra, Commander Jackson received his final orders from Earth Command. His settlement was scheduled to be the aliens' next target after they regrouped from the New Haven disaster. "Sir, the evacuation transports are standing by," reported his aide. "Cancel the evacuation. We're not running." "Sir, the aliens will bring overwhelming force. Intelligence estimates at least 200 ships." Jackson looked out at his colony. 20,000 civilians lived here. But they weren't really civilians. They were military personnel and their families, all volunteers for this mission. Every man, woman, and child knew what they had signed up for. Send a message to all residents. Phase 2 begins now. It's time to show these aliens what happens when they... The hegemony fleet assembled at Nexus Prime was the largest military force in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 12 different species formed a dark cloud around the capital world. Every major warship class was represented, from the massive Zilani dreadnoughts to the fast Corthani assault cruisers. Chancellor Vorth stood on the observation deck of the command ship Eternal Dominion, watching the final preparations. This fleet could conquer entire sectors. It had taken 3 months to assemble, but the result was overwhelming. No force in known space could stand against this armada. Admiral Kethvar, what is the current status of the human colonies? Kethvar consulted his tactical displays. Since the disaster at New Haven, human activity had increased dramatically across all their systems. But intelligence still estimated their total military strength at no more than a few hundred ships. 17 target systems confirmed, Chancellor. The humans appear to be fortifying their positions, but they cannot possibly have enough ships to defend them all effectively. Excellent. We will divide our fleet into 12 task forces, one for each member species. Each task force will target one or more human systems simultaneously. This will prevent them from concentrating their forces for defense. General Vaxth approved the strategy. Simultaneous attacks across multiple systems. The humans will be forced to spread their limited forces thin. Each target will fall quickly. The plan was sound, according to traditional military doctrine. Overwhelming force applied to multiple targets would prevent effective resistance. Previous species had always collapsed when faced with such tactics, but the humans weren't following traditional patterns. On Earth, Admiral Hayes received the final intelligence reports from their deep cover operatives in hegemony space. The alien fleet was larger than expected, but their strategy was exactly what human planners had hoped for. "They're dividing their forces," reported Colonel Martinez. 12 separate task forces, each targeting different human systems. They think they're preventing us from concentrating our defenses. Hayes smiled. Perfect. They're doing exactly what we want them to do. The human strategy was the opposite of what the aliens expected. Instead of trying to defend every colony, humanity had prepared a carefully orchestrated series of ambushes. Each vulnerable human settlement was actually a trap designed to damage specific types of alien ships. Task Force Alpha is targeting New Terra with approximately 300 ships, mostly Zilani heavy cruisers and escorts. Good. New Terra. is ready for them. What about the other targets? Task Force Beta is heading for the mining colony at Kepler-7. 200 ships, primarily Corthani fast attack vessels. Task Force Gamma is targeting our research station at Wolf 359. Each human installation had been designed to counter specific alien ship types. New Terra's hidden weapons were optimized for destroying heavy cruisers. Kepler-7's defenses were built to handle fast attack ships. Wolf 359 specialized in taking down alien command vessels. Sir, what about casualties? The aliens will bring overwhelming firepower to each target. Hayes looked at the strategic display showing all 17 human systems. Each one represented thousands of human lives. But those lives had been volunteered for this purpose. Every person in those systems knows the mission. They're not trying to survive the attacks. They're trying to damage the alien fleet as much as possible before being destroyed. Each battle will weaken the aliens for the next phase. This was the hard reality of humanity's strategy. They couldn't win through traditional defense, but they could win through calculated sacrifice that would drain alien strength until the real human fleet could strike back. The first alien task force to reach its target was Admiral Thekron's Corthani fleet attacking Kepler-7. The mining colony appeared to be defended by a handful of converted cargo ships, exactly what intelligence had predicted. "Begin standard bombardment pattern," Thekron ordered. "Destroy the orbital installations first, then demand surrender from the surface settlements." The Corthani ships opened fire on what appeared to be civilian mining platforms orbiting the planet. The platforms exploded satisfyingly, convincing the aliens that they were facing helpless targets. Then the asteroids began shooting back. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, human ships had been waiting in perfect camouflage. Mining ships threw off their disguises to reveal military-grade weapons. Cargo haulers opened to release swarms of fighters. Most shocking of all, the asteroids themselves were artificial. Massive weapons platforms built to look like natural rocks. Commander Torres led the first wave of human fighters toward the alien fleet. Her squadron had been waiting in the asteroid belt for 3 months, their ships powered down to avoid detection. Now they erupted from concealment like angry hornets. All fighters engage at will. Remember the mission. Maximum damage to enemy vessels. Make every shot count. The human fighters didn't fight like any military force the Corthani had encountered. They ignored defensive formations and concentrated on ramming attacks. Each fighter carried antimatter charges designed to detonate inside enemy ships. The pilots were volunteers who knew they wouldn't survive the battle. Admiral Thekron watched in horror as his fast attack ships were systematically destroyed by enemies that shouldn't exist. "How many ships do they have hidden in this system?" "Unknown." "Sir, we're detecting energy signatures throughout the asteroid belt." The entire mining operation appears to have been a military installation. One by one, Thekron's ships fell to human ambush tactics. The mining equipment that should have been helpless civilian infrastructure turned out to be disguised weapons. The asteroids that should have provided cover for his fleet were actually enemy fortresses. Worse, the humans were learning from each engagement. Their tactics improved as the battle progressed. They coordinated their attacks with inhuman precision, as if the entire system was controlled by a single military mind. "Sir, we need to retreat. We've lost 60% of our task force." Thekron stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His fleet of 200 ships had been reduced to fewer than 80, and the humans were still attacking. Every destroyed human ship seemed to be replaced by 2 more emerging from hidden positions. "All ships, emergency withdrawal. Set course for Nexus Prime." Similar disasters were occurring across human space. At New Terra, the Zalani heavy cruisers found themselves trapped in a gravity well that had been artificially enhanced with hidden generators. The humans used the planet's own gravitational field as a weapon, pulling alien ships down to crash on the surface. At Wolf 359, the research station revealed its true nature as a massive electronic warfare installation. Human jamming systems, disabled alien communications while hidden missile batteries picked off command ships one by one. Each human system fought with desperate ferocity, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They turned their own planets into weapons. They used civilian settlements as bait for ambush attacks. They sacrificed their own people without hesitation if it meant destroying more enemy ships. But the most shocking discovery came when the aliens tried to capture human technology. Boarding parties that managed to reach human ships found them rigged with antimatter self-destruct charges. The humans preferred to destroy their own vessels rather than let them fall into enemy hands. Admiral. HFY received the first damage reports with growing alarm. Every task force was reporting massive casualties. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. Chancellor, we need to reconsider our strategy. The humans are not fighting the way intelligence predicted. Vorth studied the battle reports, in disbelief. How is this possible? They're supposed to be primitive colonists with converted cargo ships. Sir, I believe our intelligence was deliberately misled. These humans have been planning this war for much longer than we realized. Every colony was a trap. Every civilian settlement was a military base. They've been lying to us about their capabilities from the beginning. The truth was starting to emerge. Humanity hadn't just discovered faster-than-light travel recently. They had been monitoring hegemony communications for decades. They knew exactly how the aliens operated, and they had designed their entire military strategy to counter hegemony tactics. What are our total losses? HFY consulted the reports. From all 12 task forces, approximately 800 ships destroyed or severely damaged. The humans have cost us more vessels in 3 weeks than we've lost in the past century. Chancellor Vorth realized the hegemony faced its first existential threat in 1,000 years. Recall all task forces immediately. We need to regroup and reassess. But even as the alien fleets retreated to lick their wounds, humanity was preparing the next phase of their war plan. The scattered attacks had served their purpose. The hegemony fleet was damaged and demoralized. More importantly, the aliens had revealed their true capabilities. Admiral Hayes received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The cost had been enormous. 12 of the 17 human settlements had been completely destroyed. But the strategic objective had been achieved. Total alien losses: 800 confirmed kills, sir. At least 300 more damaged. Their fleet strength is reduced by approximately 40%. And our losses? The hidden shipyards around Jupiter powered up for the first time in 50 years. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as humanity's true fleet emerged from concealment. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the aliens had seen. Carriers launching fighter squadrons numbered in the thousands. Support ships that had been disguised as asteroid mining operations. Fleet status report, Hayes requested. Captain Morrison consulted her tactical displays. 2,000 combat vessels fully operational, sir. Another 500 in final preparation stages. All ships report ready for combat operations. Hayes nodded with satisfaction. For half a century, humanity had been building this fleet in complete secrecy. While the aliens believed they were fighting converted cargo ships, they had actually been facing humanity's expendable outer defenses. Communications. Open a channel to Earth Command. President Martinez appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the Global Defense Council was monitoring the largest military operation in human history. Admiral, the entire world is watching. Are we ready? Yes, Mr. President. The aliens have taken our bait completely. Their fleet is damaged and scattered. This is our chance to end this war permanently. Martinez looked grave. Admiral, you understand the implications if we fail. This is everything we have. If this fleet is destroyed, humanity has no other defenses. Hayes understood perfectly. This wasn't just another battle. This was a decisive moment that would determine whether humanity remained free or became another enslaved species in the hegemony's empire. Sir, We won't fail. We've been planning this operation for 50 years. Every detail has been considered. The plan was elegantly simple. While the aliens regrouped at Nexus Prime, believing they had defeated humanity's military forces, the real human fleet would strike directly at the heart of the hegemony. One massive assault on the capital world that would cripple alien leadership and shatter their empire. But first, there was one more deception to complete. On the damaged bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kethvar received an unexpected transmission from human space. Commander Sarah Chen's image appeared on his communication screen. She looked exhausted and defeated, exactly what he expected from a leader whose forces had been crushed. Admiral Kethvar, this is Commander Chen of the surviving human forces. I wish to discuss terms for surrender. Kethvar felt a surge of relief. Finally, the humans were behaving rationally. Commander, I am authorized to accept your unconditional surrender. Your species will be relocated to designated worlds where you will serve the hegemony as a labor caste. Chen's expression remained neutral. I'm afraid our terms are different, Admiral. We demand your immediate withdrawal from human space and a formal guarantee of our independence. Commander, you are hardly in a position to make demands. Our forces have destroyed most of your colonies. Your military has been defeated. Have we? Chen asked quietly. Admiral, I think there are some things about humanity that you still don't understand. The transmission ended. Kethvar stared at the blank screen in confusion. The humans had been devastated in the recent battles. What could they possibly hope to accomplish now? His answer came 12 hours later when the real human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, directly above Nexus Prime. Chancellor Vorth was reviewing damage reports when alarms began blaring throughout the capital. He rushed to the command center to find his staff in a state of panic. Chancellor, we have a problem. Human fleet detected in orbit. Size unknown. Our sensors can't get an accurate count. Vorth looked at the tactical display and felt his blood freeze. The space around Nexus Prime was filled with human ships. Not converted cargo haulers or mining vessels, but purpose-built warships larger than anything the hegemony possessed. How? Many ships? Initial count suggests over 2,000 vessels, sir. But that can't be accurate. Intelligence said the humans only had a few hundred ships total. Vorth realized the hegemony had been completely deceived. The humans hadn't been fighting with their real military at all. Everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong. Admiral Hayes watched Nexus Prime grow larger on his tactical display. The alien capital world was heavily defended, but most of their fleet was scattered across space, still recovering from the recent battles. This was exactly what humanity had been planning for. All ships, this is Admiral Hayes. Today we end a war that should never have started. These aliens thought they could enslave our species. They thought we would negotiate out of fear. They were wrong on both counts. Across the human fleet, crews prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. Every ship carried weapons that had never been revealed to alien intelligence. Antimatter cannons that could crack planets. Fighter squadrons equipped with faster-than-light drives. Electronic warfare systems that could shut down entire alien fleets. Admiral, the alien defense fleet is moving to intercept. Approximately 400 ships. Hayes smiled grimly. 400 ships against 2,000. The aliens were finally experiencing what it felt like to be outnumbered. All ships engage enemy targets. Show them what human military technology really looks like. The battle for Nexus Prime began with a display of firepower that the aliens had never seen before. Human dreadnoughts opened fire with weapons that turned alien cruisers into expanding clouds of plasma. Fighter squadrons moved with impossible speed, their FTL drives allowing them to appear and disappear at will. But the most shocking revelation came when the humans deployed their boarding parties. Instead of the desperate colonists, the aliens. Expected, they faced professional soldiers equipped with power armor and energy weapons. These weren't converted miners or research scientists. These were military specialists who had been training for this exact mission. Captain Rodriguez led the assault on the alien command ship Eternal Dominion. Her team moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, their equipment far superior to anything alien intelligence had detected. Target the bridge. We need to capture their leadership alive. The human soldiers fought with the same ruthless efficiency their fleet had shown in space. They knew exactly where to strike to maximize damage. They had studied alien ship designs for decades, learning every weakness and vulnerability. Chancellor Vorth found himself trapped on his own bridge as human soldiers broke through the final defenses. The warrior who entered was not the primitive barbarian he had expected, but a professional soldier whose equipment was clearly superior to hegemony technology. Chancellor Vorth, you will surrender your forces immediately, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet. Vorth looked at his tactical displays. The human fleet was systematically destroying every alien vessel in orbit. His 400 ships had been reduced to fewer than 50, and the humans weren't even taking casualties. This is impossible. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence said you were primitive colonists. Captain Rodriguez removed her helmet, revealing a human face that showed no mercy. Your intelligence was fed exactly what we wanted you to know. We've been monitoring your communications for 50 years. We knew how you operated, and we prepared accordingly. The final revelation hit Vorth like a physical blow. You've been planning this war since before first contact. Correct. We knew we would eventually encounter hostile aliens. We spent 50 years preparing for that encounter. Every colony you attacked was expendable. Every ship you destroyed was obsolete. You've been fighting our decoys while we built a real military force. Vorth realized the scope of humanity's deception. Everything the hegemony thought they knew about human civilization was a lie. The scattered colonies, the primitive technology, the divided government, all of it had been carefully crafted to make the aliens underestimate their true capabilities. What do you want? Rodriguez consulted her mission orders. The immediate surrender of all hegemony forces, the liberation of every enslaved species in your empire, and formal recognition of human sovereignty over our claimed territories. And, if I refuse, Rodriguez gestured toward the tactical display, where human ships were finishing off the last alien defenders. Then we destroy your capital world and hunt down every hegemony ship in the galaxy. We're very good at hunting, Chancellor. Vorth looked around his ruined bridge. His empire's fleet was destroyed. His capital world was under enemy occupation. For the first time in 1,000 years, the hegemony faced complete defeat. I surrender. The transmission went out across hegemony space on all frequencies. Chancellor Vorth's image appeared on communication screens throughout the empire as he formally announced the surrender of all hegemony forces. Admiral Hayes received the surrender from the bridge of his flagship. Around Nexus Prime, human ships were already beginning the process of liberating alien prison worlds and freeing enslaved species. All ships, cease fire. Secure all enemy vessels and begin humanitarian operations. The war was over. In less than 24 hours, humanity had destroyed the greatest empire in galactic history. Not through superior numbers or advanced technology, but through superior planning and the willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. Colonel Martinez approached Admiral Hayes with the final casualty reports. Total human losses, approximately 100,000 military personnel. Total alien losses, approximately 1,500 ships.